Good morning to everyone. And that's what I like to hear. Welcome to the well here at STSA. All those who are joining us here in Arlington, those on the other side of the camera there in Leesburg, we're happy that you're here. We're in part 4 of a series called In His Steps. And before I get to the series, the 10 Commandments. Everyone's heard of the 10 Commandments, right? Like, regardless of how you grew up, in church or outside of church, everyone knows what the 10 Commandments are, or at least the concept of the 10 Commandments. We know there was a movie back when we were young, Charlton Heston. I know I'm dating myself right here. They appear in popular culture references. Maybe we went to Catholic school and some of us were forced to memorize them. Won't do a show of hands how many people think they could name the 10 Commandments. Won't do that. But the 10 Commandments are something that is everyone knows. It's God's top 10 list of no-nos, things not to do. But I think the term commandment is slightly misleading. I think that when we hear the word commandment, we think in terms of God will be angry at violators. We think of rules, and if you don't follow this, I'm angry at you for breaking my rule. And that's not necessarily the right way to think about the commandments, about any of the commandments, but specifically the 10 Commandments. And I'll explain to you why. Is if you look at the context in which they were given. The 10 Commandments were given very, very early on. The people of Israel, just a quick summary of the history of the people of Israel. They were enslaved in Egypt for many, 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 many years. And then God freed them, 10 plagues, Moses, let my people go. That's what the movie was about. Okay, the 10 Commandments, in case you missed it. And he freed the people, and now all of a sudden, they're in a new place, in a new land, and they're not slaves. So they're governing themselves, but they didn't know how to govern themselves. So the 10 Commandments were given as a way of like, hey, here's some rules to live by to make sure that this free society thing works properly. Because you don't know how to live in a society by yourselves because you were always just told what to do. And we can agree, for the most part, that even though we sometimes break some of the commandments, for the most part, we can agree that they're given for our sake. Like, we can all agree that society is better if there's no murder. Like, no one would disagree. We can agree society is better if there's no lying. We can agree that honoring our parents, okay, especially as parents, we can agree society would be much better if everybody did that. I'll put it up on the screen. Here's a summarized version of the 10 Commandments, okay? And obviously, this is my own words right here, but the 10 Commandments are basically this: worship one God, don't make idols, don't dishonor God's name, leave number 4 aside. We'll come back to that one later. Honor your parents. We should bold that one, okay? Don't murder, don't adultery, don't steal, don't lie, don't covet what isn't yours. That's the 10 Commandments. Everyone good with me so far? Like, it's a familiar list. Forget about number 4. We'll come back to that. As you look at that list up on the screen, are you okay with breaking any one of those? Like, do you look at any of that list and you're like, not that big a deal? Yeah, I may worship an idol this afternoon, thinking about it, not sure. Murder, did I do that once or twice? I can't. Or anyone's like, you know what? I'm gonna go 2 for 1. I'm gonna go visit my parents today. I'm gonna drop some serious 4-letter bombs on them when I get over there. 2 for 1 special. Break 2 commandments in one thing. No one thinks that way. You look at the 10 Commandments, and across the board, again, even though we break them, I'm not saying we don't break them, we all agree they shouldn't be broken. We all agree they're good for us. We agree they're good for society, they're good for me, they're good for you. We all agree that it's better if we abide by these 10 commandments or principles or laws that Jesus put up, or that God gave us in the book of Exodus. In fact, if you look at the list, there's probably 3 or 4 of them that if you break them, you'll probably go to jail, okay? But did you know that there's one exception to what I just said? There's one exception. There's one commandment that, for whatever reason, it's on this list, but we don't think it's a big deal to break. In fact, we break it all the time, and on top of that, we not only break it, we're proud of breaking it. And we brag about how much we break it. If there's one commandment, I've taken a lot of confessions in my life. There's one I have never heard anyone confess about breaking the 4th commandment. And the 4th commandment is this, in case you're not aware. Exodus chapter 20, verse 8 through 11. It says, remember the Sabbath day. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle. Even the cattle can have a Sabbath, okay? Nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. And then, what does this word say? And then he rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. I never heard anybody confess this. But did you know that if you look at the compilation of the Ten Commandments, you put it all together, you wrote it down as a text document, 30% of the page would be filled by this commandment. Like, do not murder, it's 3 words. Do not murder. Okay, there's thou shalt not. Thou shalt not murder. That's it. This one, it was 3 slides up on the screen. However many words about remembering the Sabbath. And like I said a minute ago, we not only break it, we brag about it. I haven't had a day off in 2 months. I'm taking a vacation and whatever it may be. I'm burning the candle at both ends. I'm grinding. I'm this and that. And we're proud of it. Like, imagine that same attitude with the other ones. You should have seen what I stole today. I really got to clean them out. Who cares? As you know, I saw my neighbor's wife. I coveted that lady today. Just a season of coveting my neighbor's wife for me. That's just the way it is. We wouldn't do it with any of the other commandments, but somehow with this commandment, we feel like it's okay. Well, not after today. Because today we're going to talk about what does it mean, the Sabbath. If you're just joining us in this series, we're at the halfway point. Series is called In His Steps, and we're looking at what does it mean to be a disciple or a follower of Jesus? What does it mean to walk as he walked? We talked about over the last couple weeks about how Jesus was a rabbi, was a teacher who had disciples. They were real disciples, and he told them how to live life. Being a disciple of Jesus was not just about believe in me and go to heaven when you die. It was about believe in me and live as I live during this life before you die, and then we'll talk about eternity after that. The way we talked about it is a disciple is someone who organizes his life around his master. So if I'm a disciple of Jesus, my life is organized around him, not the inverse. I don't expect him to fit into my schedule. I fit into his. I follow his way of life, his set of practices. Matthew chapter 11, verse 29 to 30. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And then he said, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, and you will find rest for your souls." The word yoke, we talked about this in the first week of the series. Yoke is a first century word that means my way of life, my set of practices. My yoke is how I live my life. And what Jesus is saying is, I want you to have the life that I have, but the way you have the life that I have is you live the lifestyle that I live. I want you to have the result. The only way to get the result of me is to go through the process. Okay, what we've been looking at in his steps is how did Jesus live his life and how did he command his disciples? And what we saw is that Jesus' life was very counter-cultural. Would you agree with that statement? That Jesus went against the tide of this world. So our first week, or our second week, I should say, our first practice that we talked about, who remembers, began with S. The first practice in the life of Jesus, we said is silence and solitude. You guys were all practicing it, I see right there by not answering, okay? It's silence and solitude. And we talked about how you can't follow Jesus and be always in the noise. Because Jesus, counterculture, the world that values distraction and chaos and noise, Jesus was like, I got to escape to be alone, to be quiet, to be silent, to be solitude. And if we're going to be his followers, can't be a follower without that as being part of your life. Second week, which was last week, we talked about the practice of confession. We're getting lower, not higher, but that's okay. Confession. And in a world, again, counterculture, a world that tells you make a mistake, you hide it. Something happened, you blame somebody else. That's what we do today. We don't ever take ownership, no responsibility. It's someone else's fault. It's whatever it may be. We make excuses. Jesus said, no. Is that you stand up, you take ownership, you take responsibility, you announce your sin. You don't just not hide it, you announce it. You go and confess, and we talked about how the door to forgiveness, which is what we all want, is confession. Forgiveness is here. Confession is the pipe that connects me to that forgiveness, so it's up to you how much you will experience in your life. Again, Jesus pushed against the tide. The world is noise, Jesus is silence. The world is hiding and blaming, Jesus is accountability and responsibility. Well, today, third practice we're going to look at exemplifies that principle of pushing back against the world, especially in the world that we live in today. Like, it was a big deal when Jesus talked about it. It was a big deal when Moses talked about it. But man, oh man, if they could have seen the world we live in today and our need today for the practice of Sabbath. But let me tell you this right off the bat. What I'm going to tell you today is not going to be easy. All the forces in the world are working against you taking Sabbath and you fulfilling this command. However, if you do it, I promise you, it will be life-giving in ways that you could not have imagined. That's my promise to you. Let's talk about Sabbath. First, let's come up with a definition. What does the word Sabbath mean? Sabbath comes from a Hebrew word, which is Shabbat. Say Shabbat. Shabbat is a great word, okay? It sounds like Shazam kind of a word, okay? But it's actually the opposite of Shazam. Shabbat means to stop. So Sabbath, at its root, means stop. And I want you to picture that when we're going through this discussion here today, and anytime we talk about Sabbath, it means stop. Stop what? Stop working. Stop scrolling. Stop texting. Stop pushing. Stop driving. Stop committing. Just stop. Stop. Stop trying to get ahead. Stop trying to do more. Stop trying to fit more in your schedule. Just stop. And I say that, and you say to yourself, Father Anthony, I want to stop, but I can't. I want to stop working, but I can't. Do you know what it's like out there? You got a secure job. You don't got people cutting your heads off, okay? I want to just stay and rest, but my kids, they have activities. And God knows if they're not swimming and soccering and balleting, then they're going to be really behind in life if they're only playing 2 sports. Okay, how are they ever going to? Nothing. I don't know what's going to happen, and I want that, Father Anthony, but you don't know my boss. You don't know my circumstances. You don't know my schedule. I want to push back a little bit today. I want to poke the bear a little bit. And the one who says, I want to, but I can't. I don't buy I can't. I buy I won't. I buy I'm scared. I buy I don't know, but I don't buy I can't. And I want to push back on here a little bit today. Because I believe that there is a better way than the way that we're doing it. And the way is the way that God commanded back in the Old Testament. It's a way that Jesus practiced. And it's a way that Jesus, commanded by God, practiced by Jesus, taught to his disciples to follow. And it's a very simple principle. The principle is 6 days work, 1 day rest. 6 days work, 1 day rest. And I believe that not only will you be happier and healthier if you follow this system, watch this one. I believe you will get more done. I believe you'll be more productive. And it's the same principle as tithing. Okay, so in tithing, we say, here's 100% of my money. I believe, one of our core values is rational generosity. I believe that if I give away 10%, I will actually have more. I believe I want money to bless my life, to make me happy. I actually believe I will be happier with 90% with the blessing of God than 100% without the blessing of God. And the same is true when it comes to Sabbath. I believe that you can do more in 6 days with the blessing of God than you can in 7 days on your own without the blessing of God. And I believe when all is said and done, here's my hypothesis for today, and hopefully I'll prove it to you by the end, that Sabbath is the best gift that you aren't opening every week. Sabbath is the best gift that you are not opening every week. Every week, God gives you a gift called Sabbath, and every week that you don't open it, you are letting the best gift stay under the tree unopened. And hopefully I'll convince you to give it a try this week. Okay, our biblical passage we're going to look at today, we're going to see a story from Mark chapter 2. And it's a story of Jesus and his disciples on the Sabbath. Okay, well, let's call it a lazy Saturday afternoon in Jerusalem. Okay, or in Judea. Him and his disciples are walking through the field together. They get hungry. And as they're walking by, they see some grain, and they start to pick the grain because they were hungry, so they start to eat. As they're picking the grain and eating on the Sabbath, all of a sudden they run into the Pharisees. Who are the Pharisees? These are the first century hall monitors. Okay, the people who stand there and say, nope, you don't have a pass for that. Nope, you're not allowed to go there. Too fast, whatever it may be. And when they run into the Pharisees are like, you're not allowed to do that. It's the Sabbath day. You're not allowed to do that. And then Jesus says the following. Mark 2:27 says, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. There's two parts to this verse, the first and the second part. Usually, when we hear about this verse, we preach about this verse. Which part do we focus on? We focus on the second half. Man was not made for the Sabbath. We don't need to be legalistic about the Sabbath. It's not a matter of I'm not allowed to pick grain on the Sabbath. And for sure, the people who Jesus said this verse to back 2,000 years ago, they needed that second half of the verse, that man was not made for the Sabbath. But I think today, the half of the verse that we need to talk more about is that first half. Because I think that we have the opposite problem. We need to know that, guys, Sabbath was made for man. Sabbath is a gift that God wrapped up and said, hey, I got a gift for you. What's the gift, God? It's called Sabbath, and it's for you, and it's for you, and it's for you. And it's the best gift that I'm trying to give you every week, but you just don't realize it. That's why if you think about it, again, the word commandment. Sabbath is a weird command because Sabbath is a command to do something that we want to do. At least we say we want to do. Like usually you think of the command as like, turn the other cheek. Okay, I got to do it because it's commanded. Go the extra mile. But this is a command to rest. It's like commanded to ice cream or bubble bath, okay, or get a massage. Like it's a weird command that we are resisting, but God knew that he needed to command it because he knew there's something inside me and you that is always pushing for more, pushing for more, pushing for more. And God knew ultimately that push would destroy us. That's why Jesus talked about Sabbath, but it was even before Jesus. Moses commanded it in the 10 Commandments. But did you know that Sabbath goes back even earlier? When is the idea of Sabbath first mentioned? Go back to page 1 of the Bible, and you will see the concept, the principle of Sabbath in the story of creation. Genesis chapter 2. It says, after God created everything that he created, day 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, on the seventh day, God ended his work, which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work, which he had done. He did what? He rested. Did you catch that? He rested. Sabbath. Father Anthony, I can't. I'm busy. Got a lot on my plate. But God rested. I can't, my kids. But God rested. It's one of those seasons. I don't know if I can. But God rested. When God created the universe, he set a rhythm for life. And the rhythm is 6 off, 6 on, 1 off, 6 on, 1 off, 6 on, 1 off. And that's the way everything works. That's the way God himself said, that's how I work. 6 on, 1 off, 6 on, 1 off, 6 on, 1 off. That's the way nature works. Did you know that even in the Old Testament, God commanded, like the soil, anyone who's a farmer or agriculture knows this stuff more than I do, that the soil needs time to rest. That's why God commanded it. He said, every 7 years, give the land a break. Give it a chance to replenish and leave it alone, and then it'll bring back more harvest the following year. But every 7 years, give it a break. Then he said every 50 years, give it a real break because he knows that it needs a chance to recharge and replenish. Well, I got news for you. I don't think you and I are any different. I think this is the laws of the universe. And laws of the universe, like when you hear like laws of science like gravity, okay? You cannot break gravity. Gravity breaks you. You cannot say, I don't believe in gravity, so I'm going to jump off the bridge. Okay, my money's on gravity. And you know what? Truthfully, you cannot break the law of Sabbath. My money's on Sabbath. My money's on the one who doesn't take time to rest, will push and push and push and push until they break. I was reading one article that was talking about how everyone will take a Sabbath, either voluntarily or involuntarily. Some people go to the doctor and it says, you're on Sabbath. And we want to hopefully take it before we get to that point. And in case you're wondering, what will happen if we break Sabbath? What will happen if we don't abide by it? Well, I have data for you. The last time a society tried to buck the idea of Sabbath was in the 18th century, the French Revolution. Any French people in the room here today? All right, good. Then we can bust on them today, okay? The French people, the French government in the late 18th century decided that to increase productivity, what they wanted to do is create a 10-day work week. So not 7 days, 10 days. And there would be 3 of them per month, so 30 days. So you would work for 9 and then have a day off, okay, or 2 days off, depending on how it worked. And they thought this would increase productivity, to increase the number of work days. Anyone want to guess the results? Well, it's not here anymore, okay, so that should tell you the story. It was an absolute disaster. Economy crashed. Suicide rates skyrocketed. But here's the part I want to focus on. Productivity went down. Productivity, we knew that they'd be more miserable. But their productivity in 10 days versus 7 days, you would think that it actually went down. And in fact, study after study after study that's done today will tell you the following, that there's zero correlation between working more and being more productive. Zero correlation. I'll bring you a quote right here in case you don't think I'm telling the truth. This is from CNBC. It says, research that attempts to quantify the relationship between hours worked and productivity found employee output falls sharply after a 50-hour work week and falls off a cliff after 55 hours. That's not me. That's data. So much so that someone who puts in 70 hours, many of us, produces nothing more with those extra 15 hours. That's not me. That's not Bible. That's data. That's study. That's research. Let me say it in a better way. The principle is this: when you fight the rhythm of life, you fight God, and you will lose. When you fight the rhythm of life, you fight God, and you will lose. There are no shortcuts around the laws of God. There are no shortcuts around the principles that God has programmed into society and into life. And that principle is 6 days on, 1 day off. Time to rest and recharge. God rested. The soil needs to rest. An engine, a car engine, if you're always driving pedal to the metal, it ain't going to work. It's going to eventually die. It needs to rest. Even, what's the pinnacle of technology and the society that we live in today? The iPhone. Even the iPhone needs to recharge. Like even the iPhone itself at some point is like, give me a break. I don't think we're above the iPhone. I don't think we're above God. I don't think we're above the rest of society. And I can prove it to you very simple. Here's my proof for you. Go to the mirror. I'll prove it to you. Go look in the mirror. The physical mirror, but I mean more like the introspection mirror. And you look at your life, and I'll tell you what I hear from everybody. We're tired. We're worn out. Long week. What happened this week? I don't know, same as last week, but it was a long week. Last week was a long week this week. We are lacking in energy. Relationships not like they used to be. Spiritual life can barely connect with God. And I'm telling you, maybe there's a correlation. Maybe there's a correlation. Because when you fight the rhythm of life that God has put into place, you will lose. One author said it this way. That when you go against the grain of the universe, you will get splinters. When you go against the grain of the universe, you will get splinters. So that's why God gives us this command. And again, I'm putting the command in the air quotes here, because is it a command or is it for our own good? Is God benefiting from my Sabbath, or am I the one who ultimately has the most to benefit? Now, I want to go back to that passage from Genesis where God worked for 6 days and then took 1 day off. After it said that God rested the seventh day, the verse after that gives us a clue as to why taking a Sabbath is so important. Like, we don't need anything else. The data was there. God commanded it. We should do it. But in case we're curious as to why, look at this verse here, Genesis chapter 2, verse 3. It said that God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which God had created and made. God did what to the seventh day? He blessed it. Now that word blessed appears 3 times in the creation story. There are 3 times that it says God blessed someone or something. I got them for you right here. First 2. Genesis 1:22. God blessed the animals and said to them, he said what? He said, be fruitful and multiply. And a little bit later, God blessed people, humans. And he said to them, again, be fruitful and multiply. So God blessed the animals, be fruitful and multiply. God blessed the people, be fruitful and multiply. And the verse that I just showed you, then God blessed the seventh day. What does that say? What that says to me, when God blessed the animals, meant they multiply. They increase. When God blessed the humans, they increase, they multiply. I believe that the seventh day has a multiplying effect, has a life-giving effect. And I think that's what it means when it says that God has blessed it. I think that if you are like me, okay, that doesn't matter what your job is. Doesn't matter how many kids you got, okay? Because sometimes we think it's a season of life. This is all of us, okay? I have the best job on the planet, okay? I would do it even if they stopped paying me, okay? But don't tell them that, okay? I love my job more, but by the end of my week, I'm tired. I'm worn out, okay? It's not. I love what I do, and I love the people that I do with, but by the end, I am tired. And I need a chance to replenish. Everybody does, regardless of who it is that we are, because that's the rhythm that God has put in this world. I believe that when we rest, it gives us life. It multiplies. What I do in the 6 days, when I rest, it multiplies it going forward. And I'll give you proof. In the world of business, you already know the answer to this. There's a specific organization, a specific business, food business, that has decided to practice Sabbath and make it a staple of how they operate. And that place is Chick-fil-A. Everybody's favorite fast food place on the planet, except on Sundays. They're closed on Sundays. They're always closed on Sundays. Every single one of us, like I never go out to eat. The only times that I think about going out to eat will be on a Sunday. And we've all been there on a Sunday, hungry. There's a Chick-fil-A. Pull into the parking lot, see that it's closed, want to curse, but we just came from church, so we're not going to curse at a Christian place. So we've all been there. It's extremely frustrating that they are closed on Sundays. Especially anyone who's in the restaurant business knows that the highest grossing day of the week in the fast food or any food restaurant business is Sundays. It's the number 1 day to make money. But they choose to close. Why? I found this on their website. If you go to their website, it says this. It says, our founder, Truett Cathy, made the decision to close on Sundays in 1946 when he opened his first restaurant in Hopeville, Georgia. Anyone from Georgia? No one? One person from Georgia. Okay. You did like this. Why? You're embarrassed of Georgia? Okay. You started at Chick-fil-A, so we're with you today, okay? He made the decision to close. Keep on going. Having worked 7 days a week and restaurants open 24 hours, Truett saw the importance of closing on Sundays so that he and his employees could set aside 1 day to what? Read this together. To rest and worship. Say it again. Say rest and worship. Leesburg, I want to hear you too. Everyone together. Say rest and worship. That's on their website. I love that expression. To 1 day to rest and worship if they choose, a practice we uphold today. Most Chick-fil-A restaurants operate between the hours of 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday with breakfast. I figure if we're going to talk about them, let's give them a plug here, okay? So from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., there's the menu. Says check with your local restaurant, whatever it may be. Today's sermon was brought to you by, okay? 1 day, maybe this banner, who knows, okay? Here's my question to you, okay? Follow me here. Chick-fil-A takes off on Sundays. Sunday's the highest grossing day in the restaurant business. What happens to a company, to a restaurant that says we are going to honor the Sabbath and close our doors on the highest grossing day of the week? What will be the end result of that? Well, let's talk about numbers, because numbers don't lie. Up here on the screen, you see the top 5 fast food restaurants' sales per store. Okay, so not total, but sales per store. This is the measure that you use to see the success. You already know what's going to be number one on the list, or else this would be very anticlimactic. Number one on the list is going to be Chick-fil-A, but what I want you to see, how much do you think it is number one by? You see 3.9, 4, McDonald's is 4 million. Raising Cane's number two is 5.7. How much do you think Chick-fil-A will be number one by, given that they're only working 6 out of the 7 days? The rest of them are 7. These guys are 6. How much will be number one by? Numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. Numbers don't lie. It's $1.8 million more than number two, and it is almost double what McDonald's does. How? How? Someone explain this to me. Someone go to the MBA professor, the business teacher, and explain this to me. Well, it's very simple. The Sabbath is blessed. The Sabbath is blessed. When you resist the principles and the ways of God, you fight God and you will lose. Please, I am begging you, do not ignore this principle. Because if you ignore this principle, you ignore the fabric of life that God created. Because I believe, and this is the most important part, I believe that the same blessing that you see up there on the screen in dollars and cents, but I don't care about that, the same blessing is available to you in your marriage, in your relationships, in your career, in your mental health, in your physical health. I believe the same blessing of God is available to each one of us. I believe God can do more with 6 than you can do with 7. That's what I'm going to go with right here. Now, shift gears. Practically speaking, what does it mean? What does it mean? How could I do? Do you want me to just sit there and kumbaya for 24 hours? Like, what do you want me to do? Practically speaking, I'm with you on the principle. I know it's commanded, but life is busy. And I wouldn't know what to do. I might just stare at a dot on a wall. What am I going to do for 24 hours? How do I take a Sabbath? Relax. The goal, the most important thing with Sabbath is we're never going to be legalistic about it, because that's what Jesus got upset at those guys. We don't want to go from one extreme to the other. One extreme is we ignore the Sabbath. The other extreme, that was the first century, the Pharisees. They were so legalistic about it. Don't touch that. You're not allowed to do that. We'll never be legalistic about it. I want to tell you 2 big ideas about the Sabbath that can guide you. And then I want to share with you how I approach my Sabbath, okay? But again, this is not legalism. This is not smite thee down, okay? This is principles and then practical tips for me. First principle. Sabbath is not the same as a day off. Sabbath is not the same as a day off. A day off means you don't work for your boss. But that doesn't mean that you're not working. That doesn't mean that you're actually resting. And many of us don't work on Saturdays and Sundays for our boss, but man, oh man, we got projects around the house, okay? We got chores and things that we got to get done. We work for our kids as an Uber, okay? Driving them from event to event and pick up this and basketball this and birthday party and whatever, bar mitzvah, I don't know what's going on, okay? And we are working and slaving. And then all of a sudden, we got to go shopping. So it's a trip to Costco. And there's the day right there. That's it. The day is over now. Going to Costco on a weekend is taking your life in your hands, as far as I'm concerned. Honestly, for some of us, our day off is worse than our day at work. Our day off is less resting than our day at work. I told you Sabbath means to stop. 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 That has to be our principle. Our goal of the Sabbath. I'm not telling you exactly what to do, but I'm telling you stop. 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 Sabbath is not the same as a day off. Sabbath is what can guide us. That's the negative of what I should not be doing. What should I be doing? I'm going to go back to Chick-fil-A because I think they nailed it, hit the nail on the head. And the word that they used was a day of rest and worship. I love the expression, a day of rest and worship. It should be a day of rest and worship. So that means it's rest for my body and also for my spirit. Not just sleep in all day, although sleeping in, physical rest is absolutely important. I'll share about, I think the importance of that. But it's more than that. It's rest for my soul as well as my body. It's a chance to spend the day delighting in the goodness of God and enjoying his creation and enjoying the blessings that he's given me. And I'm not telling you specifically what to do. Again, I will share what I do, but I just don't want you to think it's a laundry list of, like, it means you have to pray all day and don't forget to read your Bible and make sure that that's not what it is at all. It's a gift for us. And what is it that brings rest to our souls, our bodies, and our spirits? That's what it is. There's a quote from a Christian author named Dan Allender. He says this. He says, Sabbath is an invitation to enter delight. What a great command that is. Enter delight. Come on. The Sabbath, when experienced as God intended, is the best day of our lives. Without question or thought, it is the best day of the week. It is the day we anticipate on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the day we remember on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Sabbath is a holy time where we feast, play, dance, have sex with our wives, obviously, okay? Sing, or your husbands, okay? Your husbands, your wives. No one else, okay? Sing, pray, laugh, tell stories, read, paint, walk, and watch creation in its fullness. I want to focus my Sabbath not on what I am not going to do. That's the first half. I'm not going to do this, and I'm not going to do that. But then I want the second half. What am I going to do? What gives delight to my soul? What recharges my spirit? What brings, we said it's life-giving. What can I do on my Sabbath that the rest of the next 6 days gives me life and energy? I want to share with you 4 tips that I use for my Sabbath, but these are just mine, okay? So if you're in a good Sabbath routine, more power to you. But if you're looking at where do I start? How do I get started in this practically? Let me give you 4 thoughts. Number 1, the most important thing, declare your Sabbath day. Declare your Sabbath day. Stand up and say it. My Sabbath, and make an announcement. Put it out there, have some accountability. Now, the Sabbath day can vary. It doesn't need to be the same for you as it is for me. Okay, your work schedule, some people work on the weekends, so it doesn't need to be. For me, it's Saturday. Okay, Saturday is my day. That's my day of rest, but other people could be Monday. Other people could be Sunday. Obviously, Saturday and Sunday are going to be the 2 that you're going to most likely choose from. But that's the day, whatever day it is, figure out what day works best and declare it. Put it on the calendar. That's my Sabbath. Tell people, announce it. There's a little bit of accountability. Now, I just said Saturday is my Sabbath. And some of you would say, but wait, Father Anthony, Saturday nights, you work. Like I was here in church last night from 4:30. I didn't leave till like 11 p.m. So how is that a Sabbath? How is that a day of rest? Well, that leads us to number 2. Your Sabbath begins the night before. And this is such an important concept for all of life. Follow me here on this one. The day is connected to the night before, not the night after. So my Saturday is connected not to Saturday night. It's connected to Friday night. And think about it. You already do this naturally. Like you say to yourself, Friday night, let's party. But isn't Friday a work day? Why do you party on Friday night? Because you know you're off on Saturday morning. You've already made the connection. Why on Sunday, you say, I got to go to bed early? Because you know that Monday is a work day. You already do this. You connect your morning with the night prior, not the other way around. No one says on Friday, can't go out tonight, it's a work night. No, it's not. The work was the day before, unless obviously you work Saturday. So the way I look at it is that my Sabbath is a 24-hour period, but I'm going the way they used to keep track. Again, actually, this is the way the church still does to this day. It's sunset to sunset, not midnight to midnight. So for me, my Sabbath is around 5, 6 o'clock p.m. on Friday. That's when I power down for the day, and Friday night, and then I wake up Saturday, and again, I'm off. And then around 4 or 5 o'clock on Saturday, that to me is connected to my Sunday, which is a very busy work day for me. So then I'm back in work mode on Saturday night to Sunday morning. And again, in our church, okay, if you understand like the liturgical cycle of the church, the liturgical calendar, you'll know that Sunday liturgy begins when? Saturday night. Okay, so we have readings on Sunday morning, but they're connected to readings on Saturday night. Soon we'll be in Holy Week. And you know when we come on Holy Week, you'll come on Tuesday night and you'll hear us say, today is the eve of Wednesday. Okay, you with me? And when you look at the very beginning, Genesis chapter 1, when God created everything, look what it says. It said, God called the light day and the darkness he called night. So evening and morning were the first day. See how it is? Evening and morning, not morning and evening. I'm telling you, this is a game changer if you get this thing right. Because you know why it's so important? Because maybe you're different than me. I think it would be really hard to get up in the morning and do nothing all day and rest. That would be very hard for me. But when I'm able to get Friday night and then go to sleep and then Saturday, I get 2 days. I get a Friday night and I get a Saturday morning. So it's like 2 for the price of 1 kind of a component. So declare your Sabbath. Start the night before. Number 3, minimize phone use access. Now, again, we're not going to be legalistic here, but I'm telling you, the goal is rest and the phone is not rest. There are studies done that even if you're not using your phone, just hearing the buzz creates stress and anxiety in us. Just hearing the buzz. So I'm not saying, I don't have my phone with me, okay, but I'm not saying that I don't have my phone with me at all on Friday nights and Saturday. That's not true. I'd be lying if I said that. Especially I have teenage kids and they may be out wherever it may be, so we need to keep the phone. But what I'm saying is the phone is over there. It's not in here. Okay? And maybe I'll put it on Do Not Disturb, but then certain people can still access me even on Do Not Disturb. So again, we're not legalistic about it. All right? But the point is I'm not checking my email. I'm not checking the WhatsApp groups or whatever it may be. I am leaving that sucker over there, and I want to focus on stuff that matters. Okay? Rest and worship. And that gets us to number 4. Only do things that are rest and worship. Only do things that are rest and worship. What does that mean? I don't have a list for you. I think certain things may be restful for you, but not for me. And the inverse. Can I go out to dinner with friends? If that's rest and worship, fine. Like if you're a social person and you want to, absolutely. But if that for you is stressful, don't do it. Don't go to the birthday party. That's okay. Just come hang out with me. Okay, I'll say I need you. I'm with Father, like whatever. If that's stressful for you, then don't do it. That's not rest and worship. How about a board game night? If you enjoy board games, yes. If you hate board games, no. That's not. How about exercise? How about stuff? How about projects around the house? Can that work? Again, depends. There was one I enjoy. For me, part of my Sabbath is always going to include some kind of physical activity. Okay, basketball, tennis, something like that, because that for me is life-giving. And I like doing fun projects around the house. Not like doing my taxes or not like cleaning, but I like there was one Sabbath, okay, you could have driven by my house, you'd find me up on the roof power washing the siding, okay? That was like the best Sabbath of my life. Because that to me is so much fun. If you've ever done the power wash, it's like painting, okay? Watching the lines, and that to me was exhilarating. For you, that may be miserable. So the point is, it doesn't need to be the same thing, okay? Trip to Costco. If you're my wife, that's number 1 on her list. Somehow that's life-giving for her, okay? But for the rest of us human beings, that's probably not on the list. The point is, whatever you do, it should be things that bring you rest and give you a chance to worship. I remember when I was first ordained as a priest, I used to take off on Mondays, because that's what most priests do, is take off on Mondays. And what I would do is, man, the week and the work and the work and then the Saturdays and then the Sundays, I get to Monday and I would collapse. And I never was able to fully recharge, okay, because just you hit the burnout point every single week. And ever since I shifted and made my Sabbath before Sunday, not after Sunday, it's made a big difference. And that's why I'm saying this in front of everybody. I don't apologize for not doing stuff on Friday nights and Saturday mornings. Father Anthony, what do you do on Friday night? I get that question a lot. The answer is none of your business. Are you free to do this on Saturday? I don't apologize, because there is a direct correlation between what I do on Friday and Saturday and my level of energy and my level of focus on Saturday night and Sunday. 100%. That when I'm burning it on Friday night and on Saturday morning, that I'm going to come to church on Sunday and I'm going to be gassed. I'm going to start the hardest day of the most energy-consuming day for me is Sunday. I'm going to start it off with a quarter tank of gas. Versus when I do it the other way, I come to church energized, ready to do what I do. Because the bottom line is this: you can't break the principles of God and then expect to find the blessing of God. Principle of life. Can't break the principles of God and expect to find the blessing of God. That's just how it works. You want God's blessing, you follow God's principles. And none, to me, can make a bigger difference in a shorter period of time than this principle of Sabbath. God gave us 10 commandments. The only spiritual practice that is in those 10 commandments is this one. Like 10 commandments did not include prayer, did not include Bible, did not include giving, did not include fasting. All those things are important, but it did include Sabbath because it is that crucial. So my challenge to you is figure out this Sabbath. Declare your Sabbath. Start the night before. Minimize things that pull you away, especially that phone. Only do things that are rest and worship. And that may mean some people today, maybe you need to go have a talk with your boss. Maybe have a conversation about like, hey, some boundaries. Maybe you need to talk with your family. Maybe you need to put something on a calendar. Whatever it may be. Okay? You're going to start this. And again, not legalistic. Okay? I can't say that. That's not to say I never do anything on a Saturday. Or I never do anything on a Friday. I'm not saying that. Like, there are exceptions. But if I can get it 3 out of the 4 Saturdays of the month, that's a win for me. Okay, if I can get it, 75% of the time, so I'm going to say the same thing to you. We're not going to be legalistic about it. But what we're going to do is we're going to try it, and then we're going to adjust. And then we're going to adjust. And eventually you're going to settle into a place, and I promise you, as I said earlier, you will discover the Sabbath is the best gift that you have not been opening this whole time. Let's stand together for a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gift of Sabbath that you made for us so that we could rest, we could recharge, and we could find what our soul so desperately longs for. Please help us, Lord, to begin this practice and to find the life-giving blessing, Lord, and multiplication effect that you have in store for us. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, with the prayers and intercessions of all your saints. Hear us as we pray thankfully. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. In Christ Jesus our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great week, everyone.